Hello, this is Tricia from Tricia's Cards and Crafts. Welcome to another of my beginners series of videos, and this time we're going to be looking at inks. There are lots of different sorts of inks that you can use, but I'll just concentrate mainly on the inks that they sell in Stampin Up because that's where I get most of mine from now. They have a lovely collection of colours. You can have ink pads, card, paper, you can have marker pens, blender pens, and they all coordinate with each other. They're all the same. So if you buy a garden green in an ink pad, you know you can get the same colour in a card. You can get the same colour in a pen and a marker pen, and you can get a blender pen to match as well. So there's so many different ways that everything coordinates with each other. So what you can buy are these classic Stampin ink pads, and you can get those in all the colours except for black and white, that you can get in the cardstock, and vanilla, because there's not a vanilla ink pad. I think it would be too pale. You can buy them in collections or you can buy them individually. Whenever you buy an ink pad, I would recommend you would buy what these are called re-inkers, because then you know that your colour is never going to run out, because you've got the ink re-inkers to re-ink the pad once it starts to go dry. When I first started, I didn't have many of these classic Stampin ink pads because I wanted to be able to get as many colours as I could. So what I did, because they didn't sell at the moment, they sell a selection of ink pads, just a small collection of more popular colours, and they're available at the moment from the annual catalogue. I haven't got any of them at the moment. Every now and again you can pick up with certain kits, you get an individual stamp ink pad with them, and I've got a couple of those. But other than that, all mine are I'll just show you now. You can buy packs of, they're 5 in a pack, and they're plain ink pads. There's nothing on them at all. There's a little bit of foam underneath, and you've got like a felt a material over the top, so they are a little bit squishy. The only problem with that is that they do need re-inking from time to time, because they've got such a small surface area. They do dry out and then you have to re-ink them. So, but if you've got your re-inkers and you buy these ink pads, it is a cheaper way of doing it, and you are able to afford more for your money, really. So if you're just starting out and you want a selection of colours, you can either buy the pack, but if they haven't got the colours that you want in the pack, the starter pack, then you can buy yourself your re-inkers and your undyed, your plain ink pads, and do them yourself. This is what I've done. I stick a little label on the top and I colour it with the ink that's inside, and I also put the name of the ink on the bottom so that I know which ones are which, because they don't look when you take the lids off, apart from the fact that these are a little bit dirty, you can't always tell what the colour is of the ink, so you need to make sure you write down, you make some sort of markings on them to show you what colours they are. And also I find that it's easier to see which colours you want to use. Okay, so you've got the classic stamping pad. For black ink, you get now and again with the pads, you can get a small black ink pad, but they don't. The only black ink pad that Stampin' Up sell now are the Memento Tuxedo Black. It's a really good black ink, and again you can buy the re-inkers for that as well. What else are we going to do? They also sell, there is another black ink pad, and they're called Stays On, and this is the jet black one, but this is a solvent ink pad. Now, I'll explain when it comes to it later on. These take a little bit, they are sort of sticky, and you don't want to do what I've done. They come with a plastic covering, and you want to try and keep that plastic covering because it helps to stop the ink pad from drying out. These again come with re-inkers, which I've got. There's the Stays On re-inker as well, and that is another. But it smells a bit sort of, I don't know, sweet, like a bit like a sweet smell. But these, if you want to colour in with marker pens, this will go onto any surface you want, plastic, glass, obviously paper, wood, anything. So if you're doing something that it's not paper, or that you want to colour with a watercolour water ink, then I would use the solvent ink pad because they don't go together. So if you stamp with a Memento ink pad and you want to do watercolouring, the ink will run when you wet it, whereas if you use the Stays On, it won't. If you're using the blender pens, which are an alcohol ink pen, or if you use another type of alcohol ink pen, you need to use the water-based, which is the dye ink, the Memento, because then the ink again won't run because it's a different type of solvent. So you're not using the alcohol ink, you need to use the dye ink. So those are the two different types. So the water-based dye inks are the classic stamping pads and the Memento, and these are the solvent ink pads. There is one other type of ink pad that you can get, and these are Versamark. Now, I've used this quite a bit, but they are quite sticky, and you can use these to create watermarks on your card. I'll show you in a moment. Let's see, I'm not going to use this one because I've used this one quite a lot. Oh, there we are, there's the one of the small ones, the basic black stamping spot. I also have another small, Versamark ink pad here, because this one's might have a bit of colour in, and I don't want the colour to carry over. You've got to be careful with these because they are colourless. That's the way they come. Again, you can get re-inkers for these as well. I have got one somewhere, but I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment. But so you can re-ink these. But what you would do, say I will use this ink pad. If you use it on white, you won't see it. If you use it on another colour, you can use it to make a watermark. So that's what I call it, a watermark stamp pad, and it looks as if you're actually stamping with the same colour ink, but it's very sticky. It will dry. The other thing I use this for as well is when I'm doing some heat embossing, which I'll explain in another video. I won't go through it here. Here we go. So you can use these, and it looks as if you're using the same colour ink as the card, just slightly darker, and as it dries it darkens as well. But it's quite nice if you wanted to make your own backing paper and you just wanted something that's not too colourful or busy. These are great for that. There we go, almost done. There we go. So I could use that now as my backing paper. I just need to... I'll be alright. Clean it off. will be using that one again in a second. There we go. Just wipe that over for a minute. There we go. So that's how you would use a Versamark. So now it's dry, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, but it also, if I put that onto white, you wouldn't see it at all. But if you wanted to, you can. It does stay sticky for a little while, and what you can do then is you put some powder over the top, which is called heat embossing powder, and that will only stick then to the image, and then you would use a heat gun and dry it and heat it, and then it will stay where the ink was. Okay, so that's the Versamark. Whoops, the only other type of ink that Stampin' Up sell is a craft ink. It's a white ink. I don't use it very often. It doesn't show up that well unless you use it perhaps with again, heat embossing, because it does stay wetter longer, but you do have to re-ink it quite frequently because it dries out quite quickly as well. You've also got, I'll show you in a moment, you can use the Stampin' Right marker pens with stamps to make it to make an image as well, and I'll show you why I would do that in a moment. But the other things they sell are these stamping blends, but you wouldn't use these on an ink on any type of stamp, because if you do that, it'll stain the stamp and it won't come off. So you wouldn't use these. If you want to use the Stampin' Right markers, you can, but I wouldn't suggest you use the blender pens at all. They dry too quickly as well, so by the time you go to try and stamp with it, you won't get a very good image at all, if at all, because it will have dried and it will just stain your stamp. But if you want to use different colours, so I'll use that one, and those two, because they're quite close in colour. I think I'll just stick to the two for now, and I'll show you what I would do with these. So first of all, let's get something down. So going to use this circle here. I know it's only small. I'm going to put something underneath so that I don't get ink all over everything, all over my piece of paper, because I am going to be stamping off, as people call it. The other thing, when you're cleaning your stamps, which you would need to do after you've stamped using an ink, otherwise you're just going to contaminate the next ink pad that you use. You can use, Stampin' Up sell a stamping chamois, they sell a stamping mist that will help to clean your stamps off, but you can use baby wipes, so long as they're not alcohol based, they haven't got any alcohol in them, or you can just run them under a tap to clean them. You can have cloths, you can use whatever you really want to. The one thing, if you do use stays on ink, you can buy special stays on cleaners, and they've got like a little I don't know, piece of felt or something at the top, which helps when you need to clean them off. The only trouble is then you really need to clean your stamp again afterwards, because they're quite powerful because it's solvent, and it can make your stamps, it can affect your stamps if you leave it on without cleaning them off afterwards. Okay, so with all of these, you know, you take your choice what you like to use. There are other types of inks that you can buy, and there's other makes and brands, but most of them, they're either a pigment ink, which is a slower drying, a dye based ink, which dries quite quickly, which is water based, or you've got your solvent inks, which is like your StazOn, or your Versamarks. So those are the main types of inks that you can buy, but with Stampin' Up they just do really the two types. Okay, so I would just stamp here, and I'm going to place that down. And lift it up, and there we got our image. And then I'm going to use the flower. I use this flower, and the reason I'm showing you this is because it's a solid stamp like this one is. You can use, I'm going to use the lighter colours on the edges of the leaves, the petals I mean. So here we go. So just colour the edges in with the one, and you use the brush end of the right Stampin' Right markers, and then you can use, I use the darker colour in the middle and just sort of blend it into the other colour, and I always use the lighter colour first obviously, and then I will put this down. There we go. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Perhaps I didn't quite catch that one. So I'll do the same thing again. You can just see that there's the middle is slightly darker. Here we go. And then darker in the middle. Do another one over here. And another one. If you do stamp off like I did there, always make sure you re-ink over the top and don't try stamping more than once with it. Hold up. Clever. Here we go. Put one over here. Now I'm going to stamp a second time here. You won't be able to see it very well. It's better whether you use an ink pad for this particular type of, because you will get more ink on your stamp if you use an ink pad than you will with the pens, and the pens will dry a lot quicker, so you can't sort of do a second generation ink. I'll put another one down here. I think that'll be enough. I'm not going to worry about that one. Okay, right. Oops, make sure I put the right one on the right. So that's my topper, and I'm going to put a hello, a small hello, using the green. Let me just, oh, that's okay. And I'm going to put that here. There we go. Could have put another flower here, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. Okay, actually, I wonder if I could, I will just put another one. The problem is because of the stems, it won't matter too much, even though you're going to see through the flower, and you can see that the hello is underneath the flower. Okay, that will still show up because it's quite a dark colour ink. Okay, right, now for the card, and I'm going to stamp. Here we go. I'm going to use this one on the inside, and I'm just going to put this one coming in off the side of the card, and I'm going to use this one, and again I'm going to use wrong end. You can see there's two different ends. This one's got a thicker line and that one's got a thinner line, so this one's the brush end and this one's the small end, pointy end, which is great for if you're doing detailed work or if you're writing. So that's why Stamp and Write. So you can use it to stamp with and you can use it to write with. So I'll just go around the edge of this, and then I'll go in the center again. There we go. Actually, I might just go back over this again. There we are. Go quickly, and then we're going to put this down here. With time, go into the paper. It's pretty. And then I'm going to use a sentiment to go on the inside of my card, and I'm going to use it in black, in green, because I think it's nice to use the colours that match. Okay, and then finally, that's the inside of your card. I'm going to put this on the outside, so I'm going to put this one down first. I'll go through more about adhesives and what adhesives you can use in another video, but I use Tombow a lot because it does last quite a while, although this one's starting to run out now. I have used it quite a lot, but you can use any wet glue really. This one's really good because it's very sticky and it adheres really quickly and dries quite quickly, but it does give you a little bit of wiggle room. You can use double-sided tape. You can use, some people like to spray this, some people like to use glue sticks. You can use all different types of double-sided tape. You can use glue dots if you're only sticking something small down with. You can use tape pens or tape runners, which is Stamp and Seal. These are the new ones from Stampin' Up. I haven't actually, I've only got the one at the moment. There's two different types. One's for heavier things that you want to make sure that they keep the strength in them. If you're making boxes, if you're doing construction with them, then you would probably use the Stampin' Plus instead of the Stampin', just an ordinary Stamp and Seal. So there's my background. I'm going to use that to go on the top and matte for my card. I'm going to just put this on with glue again because I can and it's quick. Put that on top of my card. This is what I mean by having a little bit of wiggle room. I've got time to move it slightly, and then I'm going to put this over the top. A lot of the time when I'm doing with using sentiments on my cards, I do use the black Memento ink pad because it does stand out nicely and you can get a nice black crisp image with it. But because I wanted it to all coordinate today, I've used the coordinating colour, so I used garden green. Okay, so that's my card for today. So I don't think there's anything else I need to talk to. Oh, the other thing you can do with these stamping pads, you can do the same thing with the small ink pads, but if you press these together like this before you open them up, when you open them up you should find there's some ink on the inside, and you can use this then with a water brush to do some watercolouring. So you can actually use them as a watercolour. Because it's water based, it will mix. You can, here we go, and you can get it. You can use the ink pad because it doesn't actually touch the ink pad when it's closed, and you can do a nice wash with it. See, you can use them with alcohol as well. If you use alcohol on paper, it dries quicker and it also won't buckle. If you see that now, you can see that the paper is buckling, whereas if you use alcohol, it doesn't buckle as much, if at all. Okay, and it will dry a lot quicker. So that's how you use those. You can do the same thing with the smaller ink pads, and what you would do then, I can't find it. Oh, here it is. if you use a small block and you put your colour onto the block like that, you can again use your water brush to pick the colour up with, and again use it. Okay, but then don't forget to clean off your block afterwards. Okay, I have found that I did try using the white ink on my block, but it did take a lot more to get the colour off, so it probably would be better if you used something else to put it on, another piece of plastic or a piece of a tile. It would probably work better. But you can use any non-porous surface to put the ink on to be able to use it to pick it up from or pick it up with. Okay, so there we have our card for today, and that's all about inks. Thanks for joining me. Hope you will join me again next time. Thanks. Bye bye.